Hey yo, good morning, man. Trap here. Listen, it's been a while since we've done one of these, so we're back. About to get a weekly update for you guys here. Stick with me. Let's see what the charts are saying because the charts always talk about stuff before they hit the news, right? So you already know how we run this. We usually go through the charts, check it out, then we talk about anything major events, then we go down to calendars, anything that is happening this week that might affect our trading, and we finally finish with anything else that we might be looking at as far as plays, right? Now we're gonna add something fun at the end, which is the trap report that I've been building, right? Because now it's not just about trading, because the charts are cool, but you need to also understand what's going on in the macro. And now we added a new tool to the trap ecosystem, which is flows, right? We need to know what institutions are buying, what are they selling, what direction the market is going, what kind of rotation is going on. So stay to the end of the video, and you're gonna see how we break that down for you. All right, so check it out. To start off, we usually tend to start obviously with the markets, right? So want to make sure. Let me see here. Okay, hold on. All right, so we start here with. We're gonna start with S&P 500, aka this is the ES, right? But let's go ahead and start with let's bring out SPY. The market is open, so we'll just go with SPY instead of the usual S&P 500. And then we're gonna look here, right? So as you guys can see here, this is actually the weekly, which is we're getting ready to break out again. If we do break out, we'll go retest that all-time high that you see, which is crazy because the markets are bleeding today. But that's the weekly, right? So these are some of the levels I'm watching on the SPY. Okay, so let's get the arrow here so you guys can see. So this area right here, right, is the bottom, 716.73. The top is actually 759, about 760, right? And we are currently inside this trap box that you see here, right? So bottom of the trap box, middle of the trap box, and then the top of the trap box. We are looking to break in there, but not today, right? So still looking good on the weekly, but on the daily, we're super red, right? And as you can see, these lines, right, from the trap box, whether it's the top, the middle, or the bottom, they act like magnets. As you can see here, this day, which was about 3 weeks ago, we clear from the top all the way to the bottom. This is usually what we call liquidity grab, right? They come out here, take all the liquidity, and then they create 3 green days after that. So we're having some reds happening today. So if we go to the intraday, the 4 hour, we can actually see that happening in real life here, right? As you guys can see here. Let me bring out the arrow again because I know some of you guys in the video can't see it. So look, you see here, we broke out. That was yesterday. Had a decent day. We're like, oh man, all-time highs coming again. But today they were like, nah, just kidding. And so we've seen a little bit of a sell-off. You see that red line there, that red candle? That's today, right? So today, if we continue to sell off, we might end up in the trap box. And then if that happens, we got to look into these areas right here, right? So we got to look into the bottom of this red candle around 743. I don't think we'll go that low, but we got to keep an eye on it, right? So 743 is important between 743 and 746 because we had that green arrow end up right there. And then we had this candle right here start at 745 and it went all the way down to 731. So these are the possibilities here. Any of these candles are game once we're back into the trap box, but we're not just there yet. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at let's go to gold, right? Gold is always something we want to look at as well. It's been moving a little bit bearish, right, on the weekly. As you guys can see here, it's been bearish for a little while now. Let's bring out the arrow. So gold, right, since we got that all-time high back there, we have been red all the time. Do a little bit of sideways, some intraday trading up and down, but the bearish trend is ginormous still, right? So we got to see the next level is obviously the 4,000. 4,000 is always zeros, always a psychological level. So I always want to make sure that we're paying attention to those areas. If we break that 4,000, then there will be more downside and we can start looking to the 3,950 area and lower, right? Good thing is the RSI is a little bit on the bottom side, so that means we might get a little bit of a bounce here. We did have a gold open. Um, I still own it, but a lot of people have gotten, liquidated or stopped out of the positions. I did a little bit of a longer term gold position because I still think that the war can affect this a little bit more. But overall, the gold trend is still bearish. Those are the day traders that are trading this daily. This is what we're looking at daily. Okay, so let's see. Boom. Raise this up. This is what we did right here. This was our gold play. Actually got all the way halfway, and then now definitely stopped out. So let's go ahead and remove that. Okay, here you go. What are the areas that I'm looking at? Well, we have touched that area of the 4,000, right? You see the candle? We had a little bit of a, the candle went out down there, but we're still going today, right? So we gotta watch that close. If we do breach this area here around the 4,000 to 4010, right, which is about 4,000 to 4,010, then we gotta look down and see we might end up around the 39.44. That could be a nice intraday short. Okay, so let's just keep an eye on that, and that's gold for you. So next, let's look at silver. Silver, we're having similar, right? Because you know they move accordingly. So same thing. Silver topped out over here, has been on a bearish trend ever since. This is the weekly. So every one of these candles are weekly candles. We had a breaker structure right here, as you can see in this yellow candle. That means the structure was broken from this area, right? And now we're going lower. Had 3 weeks now that are red and lower. What are we watching on gold? What level? I mean silver. Sorry, on silver we're watching this level right here, right? So this level at around $48 is the next level to watch. We might go over there and retest that area for breakthrough. There's more red coming all the way to the 30s, which I highly doubt that we go there, but there is something to watch, right? So watch this 47, 48 area to see how it reacts there. We could get a decent bounce, or maybe even a relief bounce to come and retest this area around 59, 58, 59. So that's what I have for silver. Now let's go to the big dog. Feel me? The big dog, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin did a little bit of a bounce here, but you know, can't really get excited with these bounces anymore because, as you know, we're still in the bear market. It's the summer. You know, we're expecting some type of breakdown or correction so that we can get into better positions. But this is what I'm looking at. Okay, we have a long open of Bitcoin currently. We have not gotten stopped out because, like I said, we're on to more of a swing trade than an actual leverage play, right? So I have a 10x leverage on it, but I put enough money to keep me on for a little bit, even if Bitcoin has to drop to like 58 to actually get me out. But that's the long that we're in right now. So as you guys can see, this is the weekly, right? So we had 2 weeks of green. Today, like I said, it's red intraday, but the weekly self is still green. If you guys look here, in this area, these two candles are above that white line, which was the last support that we had, which was right around 61.9, I believe. About 61.7 to 61.9. Depends on which chart you're looking at. Remember, different charts show a little bit of a difference. Okay, so this area here is the area that we're gonna watch. Okay, so I'm watching 61.7. If we break that, then we get to test again the 60,000 area. So again, psychological area that we have to pay attention to. Before I keep talking, let me just make sure this thing's all recording. All right, it is. Fantastic. Right, so now that you see this, right, you see this on the weekly. These are the areas that we're watching for the weekly. You want to make sure that we don't break down off this white line around 61.7, and then after that, if we break, we got to watch and pay attention to the 60,000 area. 60,000, we lose that, we got to check here. You know, the areas between 58, which was the last bottom, right? You see here, yeah, about 57, 964. So about 58, which is another psychological level. Got to watch those, right? So one thing about Bitcoin is that I'm actually gonna go full face on this because this is one of the things I get a lot, right? So most people are like, hey, listen, Trap, we're going to 30,000, and you know what's going on with Bitcoin and things like that. So it always happens. Or if we get good news, people are like, oh, why is it not moving up? We got good news. Why is it? It just doesn't work like that, right? What the way Bitcoin moves and the entire market and assets moves, they move with liquidity. If there's no liquidity, things can get spiky, right? So now what I'm saying is this. I'm not saying, I don't know. Nobody really knows where Bitcoin's going. Nobody have any idea, right? These are just educated guess based on macro events, you know, time of bull runs and in length itself in days. We're talking about flows, inflows, outflows, ETFs. We're talking about, you know, sales and things like that. But I want to remind you guys of one thing. Whenever we were bullish, everybody was asking for 200,000 Bitcoin to 250. My target was 150, and that was conservative. We never even reached that. We got it into 126 and some change, right? So when we're bullish, we're too bullish, and we're called for higher highs. And when we're bearish, the same thing happens. We're now hanging around 58 to 65 for a while, and people are calling for 30s, just like we're calling for 250 in the bullish. So most likely the market's not going to give you that. And if it is, amazing, right? Because my conviction is on the long term of Bitcoin, and I'll continue to accumulate so that we can, in the future, be in good positions. Now, with that said, let's go back to the chart, right? And continue to talk about what is happening with Bitcoin. So as you guys know, on the weekly, we're still green. We got to keep on watching there. The weekly just started yesterday, so this green candle here can turn red. The last week ended closed green, right? So the last week was a positive. It ended green. We haven't seen green for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have not closed a green week for 7 weeks. So that's almost a month and a half, almost 2 months. So that means that changed, right? We had a green last week, and we might have a green this week. We got to watch from Sunday, yesterday, to Sunday 8 p.m. close this week, and then we make deductions for what happens next. But for right now, this is a positive event. You know, it seems like we're getting a little bit of a bounce here on the weekly, which is important, right? The long-term bounces are always better than the dailies, because if it doesn't happen in the daily enough, then it would never make it to the week. And the same thing vice versa. So if it starts happening on the weekly, then eventually the daily will become whatever that trend is. So that's a good thing to know. Now for my intraday traders, right, for my Bitcoin traders that are trading day trade or maybe intraday, this is what I want to show you guys here. I always try to bring it for you guys to see. So obviously we're in the red territory of my short. We're not stopped out yet. Stopped out was around 68. I think mine is around 57 or 58, because that was, I wanted to have my stop lower than this right here, so that's why I put it down there. So I'm still in the play. We're in Bitcoin long, Solana long, Ethereum long. I have a Tau long, and I have a Sui long. Tau long, we'll talk about that later, but you know, it's a decentralized iCloud, and a lot of AI models are going to start looking for some place to lay their stuff so they don't have other people copying what they already have established. But anyhow, this is for our intraday Bitcoin traders. Okay, remember, Bitcoin is also a correlation play. So if you're trading any type of coins in the crypto market, you want to see what Bitcoin is doing intraday, so that it gives you kind of that direction of where to go, right? But pretty much what we're looking at now, like I said, is this area right here, which is around 61,900, right? We can get a bounce there like we got here. Here we did a wick down, but we never went down there. And here's where we broke out from. So this entire area here was a breakout from this white line, which is the area that we're going to be testing next, right? 61,900 more or less. So that's what I want to see, right? So I want to see what happens to this daily candle. Does it break this white line with volume, or does it bounce off that white line, or does it hang around it, right? So for my day trading, this is what I like to see. I'm not trading anything today because the beginning of the week I want to see the market give me a little bit of direction. Plus we got the whole war going on, so I'm trying to conserve a little bit of the money, because remember, we already deployed about $40,000 to $50,000 for a 100,000 portfolio. We also deployed another 20,000 to 30,000 in stock. So we kind of have a little bit of a red situation now. So I'm waiting for a little bit more of a significant correction so that we can start adding. But I'm not selling anything right now, and I am sitting on cash for the most of about 50% of the portfolio. So yeah, that's Bitcoin, the intraday for Bitcoin. Now let's move through the other ones a little bit faster, right? Because I want to stay too long on these little coins. So this is Ethereum. Like I say, we have a currently an open long on this as well. And the areas that we want to watch for Ethereum. Oh, put that back. All right. So the areas that we want to watch for Ethereum, let me bring the arrow so you guys can see what I'm talking about. This is the areas right here, right? So that white line, we're literally breaking above that white line. Same thing on the weekly, right? As you guys can see, similar to Bitcoin, because they both control the market, right? So about 58% of the market is Bitcoin. Another 10 to 18% is Ethereum. So 60 plus 20, that's 80. And then the other 20% is divided by millions and millions of coins. So whenever these things move, everything else tends to follow. Now, pay attention, right? We're on the long here on Ethereum, because I'm longing. It's a swing long, so we're not leverage trading for the day. We're actually leverage trading for a long play. I'm betting on a bounce, right? Bounce up to 2,000 level, which is the area that I like to see, and that's why we got in here in this white line, so that we can go all the way to the top. Now we could get a rejection here, as I said, with a lot of things happening through the week. We might see a rejection here to come test this 1680 area, right? Where is more important is important because that's where we have this area right here back in April, right? So this area right here is similar to what's happening here. But look what happened there. When we finally bounced, we got an all-time high bounce close to all 5,000. So I'm starting to see that it could be that we are starting to bounce here, right? Because as we move towards the end of the year, October to be specific, is technically when the 4-year cycle switches again from bearish to bullish. So pay attention, right? It could be a little bit of a relief bounce here, and then we can get rejected again all the way up here at 1980.62, or we can even get rejected at the 2000 because there's a lot of buyers and sellers in that area. So it's all about who wins whenever they're fighting. But overall, past week, and then this week, green on the weekly. So if it doesn't keep going red today and tomorrow and the day after, then we might end up this week green again, which is a decent bounce, right? Kind of like happened here. We got 2 candles, then we got 2 red candles, and then we had a decent bounce, and then we went all the way down again. But I'm betting that we get a list of bounces to 2,000 on Ethereum and a bounce into about 72 to 74 on Bitcoin. So let's see what happens if we can get there, right? Now, for my day traders, for Ethereum as well, let's look here on what we got going on for the day. And let's move this here. All right, so similar to what we're talking about in Bitcoin. I want to see what happens when Ethereum interacts with the bottom of the long that we did, which is around this area right here. See this area right here that's concentrating here? Then we took a little bit of a dip, bounce back. Now we're concentrating again in similar area, right? So I want to see what happens here when it loses this area right here. Do we bounce a 1760 area where we picked up a little bit of liquidity here? Let me bring that back again. So here we went down there to the red and we picked up the liquidity, right? My stop loss is really low because I think, I can stand a little bit of more risk. So the trap community, I'm not sure how many people are in the long, but we are still in the long. I will cut it, obviously, eventually, if it goes a little bit too much against what I have. But remember, everybody has different ways of stop loss, right? So I have a position loss. Most people use a percentage. I use a position. So when I'm leveraging or taking things that are very high risk, what I do is I create a position stop loss instead of a percentage, because the percentage, there's so much fluctuation and volatility that most of the time you get stopped on the percentage and then the thing goes up. So what do I mean by that is I just choose how much money I'm going to lose, right? So on the Ethereum, I'm either a half position or a full position. So 300 or 600, and that's based on a $25,000 portfolio, 1 to 2% risk per play, up to 5% if I'm really convinced that the play is going to do well. So I'm willing to lose 300 bucks on this play that we're going to go long, right? If it goes down all the way down there and I lose it, cool, 300, that's my max loss. I'd rather do that than put, let's say $6,000 position on Ethereum and then a 10% loss or 5% loss or 2% loss, right? Because that will be aligned with the 300. So this is how I play. It just depends on how you like to do it. But intraday is looking a little crazy, right? We have some red days, red hours here on today. But remember, last week we're green. So this past few days we have been red, right? Each candle here is 4 hours. So we're gonna see what happens when it gets to this area around 1760. And remember, you see these lines right here, those are the moving averages, right? So we usually tend to bounce around those, right? Especially the blue. We're getting very close to the blue here. So we'll see how it reacts, but that's the daily for Ethereum, right? Now let's go into the Salami, see what they got going on, right? And the Solana is also a very big player in the space, so they tend to follow Ethereum and Bitcoin as well. So for Solana, same thing. We had 2 weeks that have been green, actually closed green last week. So that's very positive. Bitcoin and Ethereum only had 1 week green, and this is their 2nd week green. But Solana is moving a little bit faster. So they already have 2 weeks green, and this week they actually started red. But I want to see what happens here in this area, which is the bottom of that change of structure. So around 73.40, right? I want to see what happens there. There's a break. If it breaks, we can go a little bit lower. How low? Not sure, but it's going to be around $60, right? Because it's that area where we stop here, or it could be in this area too, around $67. Between 60 and $67 is what I'm thinking, right? Unless we create a new lower low, right? Which is a little bit bearish, which is also possible as well. But the weekly so far, last 2 weeks are good. So I'm not looking at this red candle yet because the week won't close until Sunday. Now for my day traders, that's a different story, right? That way, that one you have to look intraday and see what's going on in the intraday with with Solana, right? So with that said, let's go ahead and look at that. Don't leave the site. Hey, don't leave it. We're still here. All right, so let's see what's happening here. So with Solana, these are the areas that I'm looking at, okay? Similar, right? We're playing around. Actually, we just lost the moving averages, so we're broken under the moving average. So what's the last draw in the sand is 74.44. We lose 74.44, then we can see lower lows, right? We're gonna go in this area right here, which is around 70, right? So the breakout actually started from this change of structure here, right? Then we do it a little bit sideways, another change of structure, a little bit of profit taking, and then new high, change of structure again, and then here's when we started losing some of that gas, right? So remember, these are all 4 hours. So what I want to see for Solana is I want to see it get out of this box, right? So currently we have this box for Solana, right? And I want to watch this area, the top of this box and the bottom of this box. As long as it stays in this box, it can go on sideways forever, no matter to us, right? But if you're day trading, you want to watch this areas. If it breaks out of this box and it retests this area here of about 74.50, 74.48, you want to pay attention to that, because if we lose that, we'll go here very fast, right? Back to 70, and then even here as far as like 64, 63, and then you can even go as low as 60. But in order for that to happen, the whole market has to correct, not just Solana. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. I actually like to look in at the USDT as well, right? As you guys know, the market cap for USDT is the dominance, right? So whenever USDT is very strong, the market is very weak, right? So as you guys can see here, let me go ahead and grab the arrow again. Bro, why you want to put that right there where I'm looking at, bro? Why? I don't want to leave the site. All right, so look, as far as the USDT goes, right, we want to break. It's good that we're getting a rejection here. Same thing, you see, this is the correlations I want you guys to learn how to watch, so that you don't think that this is just astronomy for trading. Okay, last 2 weeks the market has been green, so that means USDT has to be red. So that means money is flowing out of USDT and back into the market. So ideally, we want this down as to like 3-4%, so that we can see numbers back in the bull stage, right? Otherwise, we bounce in this area right here between 7 and 9%, and that's the bearish scenario that I have been in, right? So the market goes a little bit in, then they say just kidding, then they sell all their stuff, get back into stables. Now it's happening again. We're getting 2 weeks of red candle. If we continue this downtrend here to at least come test the lower here around 5.7, that's a nice little rally, which I'm expecting in July. July tends to have small rallies, and then we die again in August and September. Sideways August, then red in September, and then start moving back up in October, and then we got elections, and then rally in the Christmas area. You know, we usually get these type of bounces here, especially when we're going into a bull market, right? So I'm watching this here, and I want to make sure that we continue to move. Lastly, let's go into what we have going on this week. So we have core CPI on Tuesday, tomorrow, pre-market, right? Like right before our market open. So these are all going to tell us what's going to happen, right? These are the expectations, right? Forecast is the expectations, or what the market expecting. The previous is what we had the last time they checked. So I want to keep an eye on these, right? We have core PPI. So CPI is consumer price index, and then core, the PPI is the people that produce, right? Produce price index. So it's the people that make your stuff and the people that consume. So you want to keep an eye on these, because these are very important. Then we also have the Mr. Warsh testify tomorrow. He's going to be talking about, if you want to see what it is, you just click on the little folder and it tells, right? So yeah, he's going to be testifying tomorrow. More hawkish expected for the currency, you know. So this is, it tells you a little bit more. And then they also, if you want to even go deeper, there's the full details here. But pretty much, that's what you want to pay attention to. I'm gonna finish it off with my report, my trap report that I share with my community. Okay, and that I'm not gonna show you on the screen, but I'm gonna talk about it briefly. Okay, so for those things, what I'm thinking of. Okay, oops. Let me bring it back up here. for those things, what I'm seeing here is pretty much, we have SPY around whatever area that we at right now. It's more or less the 754 and the 760 wall zones that we want to watch. Okay, for QQQ, we're challenging that 730. If we get a rejection, then we might go down. One of the important things that I want to see today, and for my trap community, we're looking at IWM. We might throw some IWM puts out there because it didn't get over the 302, 302, 300, 300, 302 wall that it had. So it got a little bit of rejection. We might go and retract as low as, maybe 280, 290 towards the end of the week if we continue to see this red. The other thing we look at as well is the VIX, right? I want to make sure that the VIX, whenever VIX is measuring, is volatility, right? So we got to be able to watch that and see what's going on. We watch also the 10-year bonds, right? Whenever the 10-year bond starts to go too high, right, we have a little bit of negative in the market because bonds pay future debt. So if we're paying too much, then the present has to be negative. And then whenever bonds are expensive, money becomes expensive, then the companies that need growth, which are high risk plays, right, like stocks, crypto, and things like that, they go down. So we got to keep an eye on that, right? The other thing we're watching, the VIX, which is the volatility, right? It's a little bit. It has way more volatility, and the price is a little bit calm. But we have the CPI tomorrow, and that's gonna give us a direction of what happens next, right? As far as the gold trend, right? The longs are trimming. They're starting to cut some of this because gold can go lower, right? So people, the hedge funds and the people that have smart money that we call, we're looking at the tape. And we're starting to see that they're starting to hedge and starting to sell some of their long positions and becoming a little bit more bearish. So it's definitely that the area that I told you to watch, the 4,000, is going to dictate what happens next. Okay, then let's see here what else I got for you guys this week. Like I said, we have CPI, we have PPI. There's a lot of things going on there. We have retail sales on Thursday. We have OPEX. Okay, OPEX is going to be this Friday. So for those of you who don't know what OPEX means, you need to get in the trap ecosystem because my people know OPEX tends to be very important when it comes to trading options and things like that. And so whenever this is happening, we are very aware on what we deploy. And also, we have a wild card on the week, which is Iran, right? The ceasefire is officially canceled, right? He's threatening to kill our president. There's a lot of things going on, so we have to be watching and see, right, what happens next. What I'm watching in SPY is the 760 area, right, between 760 and 754. Even at 740, you got to watch that. So 740 to 760 is the areas that we're watching, right? We got a call wall that is strong at 760. Can't break through that. Have a secondary wall around 756. Got to watch that, right? And then we have to see the second put support, which is the absolute area where we cannot crack for SPY, 745. So we got to pay attention to that and see what happens, right? So see if people cover. As far as the QQQ goes, the level is 700 to 730. 730 we couldn't break, so now we're gonna watch anywhere between 720 to 726, where we have a put heavy zone, right? It's around 715 to 710. If we lose 720, we'll see 715 and 710 very fast. Now 700 is the absolute monster, right? I really doubt that we'll breach that area. It's the largest downside bar that we have on the way down. So that's the area that I'll be watching. Then as far as IWM is a little bit different, right? So 305 is the area that we really want to get to, that we're trying to long once we break 300 with volume. 300 is the wall, right? The wall that we couldn't breach. So that's why we've seen this correction on IWM. I actually like IWM as a put swing because of not only the charts are saying that, but also the rejection on the charts, but also I'm seeing the tape and there's a lot of covering happening and people are starting to become a little bit more bearish instead of trying to add more to their position to break through that 300. So what areas I'm watching on the IWM, 290 all the way to 395. 290 is the absolute bottom that I'm looking, worst case scenario. So if I was to add a put, I'll probably look at somewhere around there for puts, right? And then 305 is the top. So ideally, I want to see what happens at 300 and then long from there if it starts to move. Because, if it cracks 300 with enough volume, we can long into about 305. Okay, we have some plays that we're in already for the trap ecosystem. So we're still watching. Some of them are armed, meaning that we're watching it and it's ready to go. We're just waiting for a few conditions to fire off my Discord alerts so that I can call it out. But so far, It hasn't happened yet, right? So we're just gonna have to keep an eye on it. And then just briefly what the levels that I'm looking at this week for SPY 750, 745, for QQQ 700 to 715, for RWM 290 to 295 to the downside. KRE and XLV were in those places too, but I'll share that in the close friends. So also keep an eye. We have it could be a momentum squeeze happening on the IWM. So that's actually the only play that I'm excited about this week. And I'm looking at Tesla as well, right? Because Tesla has, a little bit of a chart situation going there. I'm gonna break that down to close friends, but Tesla is also on the watch, right? So with that said, that's pretty much what I had today. And if you have any questions, obviously, hit the DMs up, and I'm gonna be publishing this on my YouTube. So if you're watching this and have any questions, just make sure you hit us. And until then, man, let's trap. And yeah, tell the haters, trap's still on vacation. You feel me? I won't be back until about August. So Brazil is beautiful, and whenever you guys want to pull up, I'm thinking about doing an event down here. So until then, protect the bag, and you already know, man, we stay trapping.